Has your business gone up since you've been on the show?
It's definitely improved business. I mean, it's nice to not have to advertise because the show does it for you.
In early 2021, Jarrod Schulz walked into an Orange County bar and spotted his ex-partner, Brandi Passante, laughing with friends. What happened next ended everything he'd spent 2 decades building. So what really happened to Jarrod Schulz? How does someone turn his life around after serving 16 months in state prison, build a family and a television career, only to lose it all in one explosive moment? The answer's more heartbreaking than anyone imagined, because this isn't about one bad night. Join us as we talk about the tragedy of Harrod Schulz's life, the prison years that shaped everything. Long before millions of people watched him on the TV show Storage Wars as the young gun, Jarrod Schulz was just a young man in his early 20s who was making very bad choices. On January 27, 1997, his life took a dark turn when the police arrested him. He was caught with a dangerous substance called methamphetamine. This was not the first time he had been in trouble with illegal substances, and his situation was becoming serious. At first, it seemed like the court was going to be easy on him. The judge gave him what looked like a lucky second chance. Jarrod was told he only had to spend 60 days in jail and then follow some strict rules on probation. He admitted he was guilty, stayed in jail for 2 months, and finally walked out as a free man. However, that freedom did not last long at all. In fact, it lasted only about a week. Jarrod was arrested again almost immediately. This time, he was caught driving under the influence while also carrying more illegal drugs. The judge decided that Jarrod had wasted his second chance and was now showing a dangerous pattern of behavior. Because of this, strike 2, the judge sent him to state prison for 16 months. Those 16 months in state prison were completely different from his short stay in a local jail. In state prison, he wasn't just around people who had committed small crimes. He was living with very dangerous people, including murderers and others who had done terrible things. These were people who were going to be behind bars for a very long time. A person close to the family later told a magazine that living near these violent criminals finally woke Jarrod up. He realized that if he didn't change his life, he would end up just like them. Being in prison gave him a clear view of his future, and he knew he had to stop. However, even though he decided to change, his time in prison left him with a criminal record that would stay with him for the rest of his life. It also created a habit of handling stress in a rough way, a habit that would come back to cause problems many years later when he was famous. When he walked out at 21, he had a felony conviction, no prospects, and a determination to never go back. But the psychological scars? Those didn't disappear just because he'd served his time. A second chance named Brandi. In 1999, 2 years after prison, Jarrod took a job as a sales manager at a carpet cleaning company in Tustin. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. Then Brandi Passante walked through the door, and everything changed. She was smart, capable, and didn't judge him for his past. More importantly, she saw potential where others saw an ex-convict. Their relationship moved quickly, and by 2003, they had a son, Cameron. 2 years later came their daughter, Peyton. For Jarrod, Brandi was the second chance he desperately needed, the lifeline pulling him away from the path that had led to prison. But second chances come with pressure. He had to prove her faith wasn't misplaced, that he could be the man she saw, rather than the criminal the court system had labeled him. That pressure would drive him to remarkable success. It'd also create an internal tension that would never be fully resolved. In the early 20s, Jarrod built a mortgage business during the housing boom. For a while, money flowed. He'd moved beyond entry-level jobs into something that felt like real success. The American dream seemed within reach. Then the mid-2000s came, and with it, the housing market collapsed. Jarrod's business, like thousands of others, simply ceased to exist. Suddenly, he was unemployed with a family to support and bills he couldn't pay. The failure wasn't just financial, it struck at the core of his identity as a reformed man who'd built something legitimate. He'd proven he could succeed, that his prison record didn't define him. Then circumstances beyond his control took it all away. It was during this desperate period that Jarrod's aunt, who worked at a storage facility, suggested he try storage auctions. She thought he might turn a quick profit. It wasn't the prestigious mortgage business he'd built, but it was something. That suggestion would eventually lead to storage wars and transform his life in ways none of them could have predicted. The young guns arrive. When Storage Wars premiered in December 2010, Jarrod and Brandi were christened the Young Guns, scrappy underdogs who didn't have the deep pockets of their competitors, but made up for it with their hustle and chemistry. Viewers instantly connected with them because they felt real. The show was a massive success. Jarrod and Brandi became fan favorites, their bickering and obvious partnership making them the show's emotional heart. For Jarrod, it was vindication. Here he was, a convicted felon, now starring on a hit television show watched by millions. He was making $30,000 per episode and appearing at industry events. It was the ultimate redemption story. In 2014, A&E gave them their own spin-off, Brandi and Jarrod, Married to the Job. 8 episodes aired. Though the show's title was interesting, they were called Married, despite never legally tying the knot. The success should have been everything Jarrod worked for. He had fame, money, a thriving business, a beautiful partner, and 2 healthy children. On paper, his life looked completely transformed. But success has a way of magnifying problems rather than solving them. And the pressure of maintaining this new life while filming a reality show began taking its toll. Now and Then second-hand store in Orange County was supposed to be Jarrod and Brandi's foundation, the business that'd provide for their family long after the cameras stopped rolling. They'd started it before Storage Wars found them, and the show's popularity should have boosted business. But reality proved more complicated. During Season 4 in 2013, they opened a second location in Long Beach. For a moment, it looked like they were expanding their empire. The Long Beach location closed in 2014, just 1 year after opening. The Orange County location held on longer, but eventually closed in 2016. Both stores failed, despite massive free publicity from appearing on one of A&E's most popular shows. For Jarrod, watching both thrift stores fail must have felt like a repetition of the mortgage business collapse. Another legitimate enterprise ending despite his best efforts. He was making good money from the show, yes, but those paychecks were tied to network executives' whims. The thrift stores were supposed to be his independence, his legacy, something solid. Instead, they became another item on his list of failures. And beneath all of that was a darker question. If the businesses kept failing, how long before old temptations started looking appealing again? The relationship that carried everything. For 18 long years, Brandi Passante was the most important person in Jarrod's life. She was his anchor and his partner in everything they did. She was the mother of his children and the main reason he stayed out of trouble and followed the right path. Brandi first met Jarrod only 2 years after he got out of prison. At that time, he was working a regular job in sales. Even though she knew about his troubled past, she chose to take a chance on him and build a future by his side. When Storage Wars returned for Season 13, in April 2021, viewers immediately noticed something different. Brandi and Jarrod barely interacted, bidding separately, and their chemistry had completely vanished. In that season premiere, Brandi confirmed what fans suspected: "I'm not with Jarrod anymore." She'd later reveal they'd actually split in fall 2018. For 2 years, they'd continued working together, maintaining a professional relationship despite their personal one ending. Brandi described herself as essentially a single mother, saying she'd done most parenting even when they were together. For Jarrod, losing Brandi meant losing more than a romantic partner. He lost his business partner, his co-star, and, most painfully, his daily presence with his children. Cameron and Peyton were 17 and 15 when their parents split, old enough to have opinions about what happened and who they wanted to spend time with. On the night of April 30th, 2021, Brandi was spending time with her friends at a bar in Orange County, California. At this point, it had been almost 3 years since she and Jarrod had ended their long relationship. They were living separate lives, but that night, their paths crossed again when Jarrod unexpectedly walked into the same bar. According to sources from the police who spoke with the news website TMZ, the two of them quickly started a very angry argument. What began as a conversation soon turned into a loud and heated fight. As the situation got worse, Brandi told Jarrod that he needed to leave the bar and go away. Jarrod did not listen to her. Instead of walking out, people who were watching the fight said he stayed and began screaming at Brandi and the group of friends she was with. The situation became even more serious and physical. According to the official police report, Jarrod allegedly pushed Brandi 2 different times while he continued to shout at her. Someone called the police. By the time officers arrived, Jarrod had left. A police report was filed. Days later, Jarrod spoke with investigators and denied ever putting his hands on Brandi. The Orange County District Attorney's Office didn't buy it. In May 2021, Jarrod was formally charged with 1 count of misdemeanor domestic violence battery. The charge wasn't just about one night, it was about a pattern of behavior, about a man who still hadn't learned to control his anger. For someone with Jarrod's history, the drugs, the DUI, the time in prison, this domestic violence charge represented a return to old patterns he thought he'd left behind 2 decades ago. Brandi's Instagram post months later spoke volumes. She posted a photo of a new tattoo, the word "free," with a bird flying away, and wrote, "To me, this means that somehow, by the grace of God, I managed to escape a very difficult situation that so many people fall victim to. I will be eternally grateful for the life and freedom without fear that I get to live now." Those words, "without fear," suggest the night at the bar wasn't an isolated incident, but rather the public manifestation of something Brandi had dealt with privately for a long time. The career that disappeared overnight. After Jarrod's domestic violence charge became public in May 2021, A&E reportedly launched an investigation to determine his future on Storage Wars. The network that had built an empire partly on Jarrod and Brandi's chemistry now faced a PR nightmare. Jarrod made a brief appearance on Storage Wars in Season 13, filmed before the April incident but airing after the charges became public. The tension between him and Brandi was palpable. She called him an idiot for spending $400 on a storage unit. When they both wanted the same locker, Brandi had her friend Mary bid for her rather than compete directly with Jarrod. These weren't playful jabs. This was barely concealed hostility. That appearance would be his last. Season 14 premiered without him. Season 15 continued without him. Brandi remained on the show while Jarrod simply vanished. The network never made an official statement, but the message was clear. The loss of his television career meant more than losing income. The show had been his identity for more than a decade. He was the young gun, the scrappy underdog, the guy who turned his life around. Storage Wars was proof that he'd made it. Now that was gone, and what replaced it in the public consciousness was far worse than being forgotten. His last Instagram post was in 2021, right around the incident. After that, Jarrod essentially disappeared from public view. His television career finished, his reputation destroyed. At 48, Jarrod owns a bar in Lake Forest, California, called the Rush Bar and Grill. He took over ownership in 2019. back when his life still had some promise. The bar's website describes him as a family man and self-made entrepreneur. Words that must feel hollow now. He has a new girlfriend, Rochelle Beckman, who works as a bartender at his establishment. They confirmed their relationship in early 2019, and by all accounts, she's been supportive through his legal troubles. But starting a new relationship while facing domestic violence charges from your previous one creates complicated dynamics. The Rush Bar and Grill keeps Jarrod busy. According to customers, most people don't even realize he's the owner, which is probably how he prefers it. Being recognized now doesn't bring admiration. It brings judgment and conversations about what happened with Brandi. His children, Cameron and Peyton, are now in their early 20s. They grew up watching their parents fight on television, watch their family businesses fail, watch their parents' relationship dissolve, and then watch their father get charged with domestic violence against their mother. These questions haunt Jarrod because he knows the answers. He went to prison at 20, promising himself he'd never be that person again. He met Brandi and for 18 years maintained the image of the reformed criminal who made good. He had the television career, the family, the redemption arc that proved people could change. But on that April night in 2021, Jarrod revealed he hadn't actually changed as much as everyone thought. The kid who went to prison for drugs and DUI was still in there, still responding to conflict with aggression. 24 years after his release, Jarrod proved you can change your circumstances without changing yourself. The tragedy of almost. The real tragedy of Jarrod Schulz isn't that he went to prison at 20. Plenty of people make terrible mistakes when they're young, serve their time, and come back to build meaningful lives. The real tragedy is that Jarrod almost made it. He came so close to being the redemption story everyone wanted that you could taste it, and then he threw it all away. Think about how close he came. Prison at 20, determination to change, a legitimate job, the love of his life, and 2 beautiful children. When his mortgage business failed, he didn't return to crime. He pivoted to storage auctions. When Storage Wars made him famous, he used that platform to build businesses and provide for his family. For 18 years with Brandi, for over a decade on television, Jarrod maintained the facade that he was reformed. But facades crack under pressure. By 2021, the pressure had become unbearable. His businesses had failed. His relationship had fallen apart. His children were moving on without him. And he was approaching 48, realizing his best years were behind him. The show that had defined his adult identity was continuing without him. And Brandi was moving on with her life, free and happy. On that April night, something in Jarrod snapped. Or maybe it didn't snap so much as finally reveal itself. The anger he'd kept mostly controlled for 2 decades, the aggression prison had taught him to manage but never eliminated, all of it came flooding back. The domestic violence charge, the DUI that followed, and the resisting arrest charge from 2019 are not isolated incidents. They're part of a pattern showing Jarrod never truly addressed the issues that sent him to prison. He changed his circumstances, but not himself. Managed his demons, but never defeated them. At 48, Jarrod Schulz stands as a cautionary tale about the difference between appearing to change and actually changing. He had everything: fame, family, success, a second chance most people with felony convictions never receive, and he lost it all because he never did the hard internal work necessary to become someone different. The saddest part? Jarrod knows all of this. At 48, he's got enough life experience to understand exactly what he lost and how he lost it. He can see clearly how close he came to making it, to proving that people can change. And that knowledge, that perfect clarity about his own role in his downfall, is its own special kind of torture. Jarrod Schulz's story isn't over. He is only 48, and there's still time for genuine change and meaningful repair of the relationships he's damaged. But his story stands as a powerful reminder that escaping your past requires more than just changing your circumstances. It requires changing yourself at a fundamental level, and that kind of change is far harder than most people realize. The man who served 16 months in state prison at 20 is, in many tragic ways, still the same person at 48. He's older, has more life experience, has tasted success, and watched it slip away, but the core patterns remain. And until Jarrod does the hard work of genuinely changing those patterns, history will continue repeating itself. What do you think could have saved Jarrod from this path? Was his downfall inevitable from the moment he left prison? Or were there turning points where different choices might have led to different outcomes? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.